Good day, grade 12s. I'm Mrs. Denise Mayberg, tourism educator in the Sedibeng East D7 district. The topic that I'm going to discuss is sustainable tourism. Sustainable tourism and responsible tourism you did in grade 10. You started with what is the impact, the positive impact and the negative impact on people, planet, profit. And in grade 12, we are also going to discuss the triple bottom line approach, and we are now going to also learn about the people, planet, profit, which is social, environment, and economy. So this work is about term 3, week 4. If you look at the exam guideline over here, sustainable tourism is usually section D and usually question 8. According to the CAPS, these are the things that you need to master in order to do good at the end of the year. The lesson will focus on the following. The 3 pillars of sustainable tourism, which is people, profit, planet, also known as social, profit, or economy and environment. You need to know the concept and background of the triple bottom line, which is environment, economy, and social. You also need to know what is the corporate social investment and responsible tourism and responsible tourist. Now, responsible tourism and tourist we will discuss in the next lesson. Where did sustainability start? It is believed to have originated during the Industrial Revolution, where people was concerned about the negative effects of society had on the environment, such as deforestation, ozone depletion, greenhouse effect, and erosion. But what is sustainability? According to the United Nations, sustainability is a guiding principle for economic, environment, and social development that aspires to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to their own needs, and an equitable sharing of the environmental costs and benefits of economic development between and within countries. Now, in short, sustainability means that you have to look after the people, you have to look after the environment, and you have to look after the economy in order for tourism to be sustainable, not just in the future, but also for the present. I'm going to explain the history of sustainability and where it originated from. Now, if you look at picture 1, that is your Industrial Revolution. Now, picture 1, Industrial Revolution, this is where they changed the manufacturing and transport in order to take away what you make by hand and make use of more machines so that more products can be produced. But they've realized that this has a significant impact on the environment, which is a negative impact. In order for us to build factories, they had to do deforestation, meaning that they had to cut down trees to make space to build these factories. And usually, remember, trees take out carbon dioxide and then they release oxygen. Factories also caused the greenhouse effect, meaning that certain gases, the carbon dioxide, are released into the air and it's trapped in the atmosphere, and then the earth is starting to heat up. It also caused ozone layer depletion, which is minimizing the ozone layer. And this will result in more sun coming into the earth and warming up the earth. It also caused erosion. And erosion is when wind, water, or gravity move broken pieces of rocks and sediments. So this had a major effect on the environment. Now, in 1994, the King's One report was written, and governments were initially only concerned with growing tourism for making a profit. So they wanted to only make money. But then International tourism growth made governments realize that tourism is more than just making money. Tourism has an impact on the people, which is the local community, and tourism also had an impact on the environment. The local community in which the tourism business is operating in. So they had an impact on the different cultures which was in the community. They had an impact on employment. They had the impact on the environment, the natural environment, the physical environment. So in 2002, the King's 2 report was written. And in this report, it shifted from single bottom line to triple bottom line approach, also known as the 3 pillars of sustainability. The 3 pillars are interdependent, so they are dependent from one another. And they also support each other, but may compete at times. So sometimes tourism businesses focus more on profits, and other times they focus more on the environment. But it's very important for a tourism business to be sustainable. They need to have a balance. This image shows that tourism in the beginning only focused on making money, profits. Then they realized that tourism had an impact on the environment, the natural environment, and also on the people in which the business operates. So basically, without people and the environment, profits cannot be made, and tourism cannot be sustainable. According to the white paper, which is a government document giving guidelines on how, what, and why for tourism in South Africa, the development and promotion of tourism in South Africa promotes responsible tourism and uses the triple bottom line as a guide. So basically, tourism must make sure that tourism businesses are responsible. They must make sure that the business that they do is fair. They must make sure that they do not discriminate, and they must make sure that they act in good faith and that they are ethical. And they must also make sure that they do follow the triple bottom line approach, meaning that they take care of the environment, the people, and the planet. Now let's have a look at this picture. What are the 3 pillars of sustainability? When you are going to write your exam at the end of the year, it is very important that you know the 3 names that you learned in grade 10, which is people, planet, profit, and also you must know that people is social impact, planet is environmental impact, and profit is your economy impact. Okay, tourism and sustainability. Now there's a very close relationship between tourism and sustainability. Tourism is a fast-growing industry. Yes, not at the moment. It is now standing still. It is at complete stop, but it does contribute to the economy. So when tourism open up again, foreign tourists come to South Africa, domestic travelers travel within South Africa, and that contributes to the economy, meaning that the economy is making more money. Tourism involves consumers. Now, consumers is your tourist. The industry, you have different sectors within the industry. You have your transport sector, you have your accommodation sector, your hospitality sector, you have your activity and attraction sector, you have support services as well. Then the environment. Now, as you have learned in grade 10, there are 4 types of environments. You have your physical environment, your natural environment, your man-made environment, and also your cultural environment. And then you have your community. Now your community is your people within where the business operates. Now tourism is an invincible export, meaning that in order for you to experience tourism, the tourist needs to come to a certain country or the tourist needs to travel. So it's invincible export because when a foreign tourist comes to South Africa, they bring foreign currency into South Africa. So then they spend their money. They spend their money on accommodation establishment, transport, activities, attractions, food, etc. So you cannot see the export. Usually when you export goods, products go out of the country. But with tourism, the product, the service does not go out of the country. It stays in the country, and foreign tourists come to South Africa and then they spend their foreign currency here and they experience what tourism has to offer. Tourism is interaction, meaning that the tourist and the tourism service or the people working in the tourism industry interact. It creates awareness, meaning that you are now aware of the different cultures. You are aware of the different traditions of people. You are aware of how important it is to look after the environment. And then dependency. Tourism is also part of dependency. Now, dependency meaning that when a tourist visits a certain attraction, they expect certain things. They expect that the attraction must be clean. They expect friendly staff. They expect that they are safe. So tourism is dependent on the tourist, and a tourist depends on the tourism industry to make sure that they are happy and safe. So this implies that the relationship is sensitive. Tourism can have both positive and negative impacts on the environment, the social and economy profits. The impacts of tourism must be managed in such a way so that the negative impacts can be minimized and the positive impacts can be increased. Now, what is sustainable tourism? Sustainable tourism, which is economically viable but does not destroy the resources on which the future of tourism will depend, notably the physical environment and the social fabric of the host community. Now, tourism can bring money into the country. Tourism can also ensure that people within South Africa spend their money traveling within South Africa. While doing so, while bringing in money, it does not destroy the resources available. It does not make use of too much water or electricity. So they are using resources sparingly so that the future generations can also enjoy the benefits tourism has to offer. Let's have a look at picture A and picture B. Are they positive or are they negative? A, feeding the animals. Feeding the animals can be positive or negative. It depends on the situation. But I'm first going to start with the negative impact. If you look at this picture, it is a negative impact to feed the animals. Monkeys especially get dependent on the tourist to feed them. And if the tourist does not feed this monkey, they sometimes get aggressive. So they can attack tourists, kids, etc. Or the tourist can feed the wrong food to the monkey and that can kill the monkey. Monkeys also tend to break into accommodation establishments to get food. So that can also be bad because now the tourists are annoyed and they throw the monkeys with sticks and rocks, and they sometimes kill the monkeys because they are annoyed with the monkeys that steal their food. But feeding the animals can also be a positive impact. Sometimes tourism establishments or certain attractions allow feeding of animals. But they will tell you at what time you can feed the animals, or they can tell you what types of food can you feed the animals, because they know. So there's an interaction between the animals and the tourist. But that is planned and managed very well. So it can be positive and negative. If attraction allows feeding of animals. This will also attract tourists to a certain area and they will spend their money. The next one, B, employment. Is employment a positive impact or is it a negative impact? I will give you a few seconds to think of the answer. Okay. Obviously, employment is a positive impact, but why is it a positive impact? People get jobs, people get money, their living standards can improve. C. Is C cultural heritage? Is it a positive impact or is it a negative impact? Okay, cultural heritage can be positive and it can be negative. In this specific picture, this cultural heritage is a positive impact. These employees, obviously they have their jobs and they embrace their culture. So they are proud of their culture. But it can also be negative. Cultural heritage can also be negative. The reason why tourist does not respect the privacy of the local community. They take photos without asking, they invade their privacy, they go into their houses without asking and without permission. They also take keepsakes of the cultural heritage. So it can be positive and it can be negative, but with this specific picture, it is positive. Let's look at D. D is CSI. Now, CSI stands for Corporate Social Investment. This is a new term for tourism grade 12, and I know if you have business studies, you will also know this term. They've got CSI, Corporate Social Investment, as well as Corporate Social Responsibility. Is it a positive or negative impact? Corporate social investment is a positive impact because now you are giving back to the community. You can give back financially or non-financially, and usually a business has a responsibility, corporate social responsibility to look after the local community. They can do this through sponsorships. They can do this to do volunteer work. They can do this to adapt a school. I will discuss that later on. E, littering. If people throw their waste on the ground or in the water, is it positive or negative? Obviously, this is a negative impact. Why is it a negative impact? Animals can eat the litter and they can die, so it's bad for fauna, the animals, and it also creates visual pollution. People don't want to go to a place that is filthy. People don't want to go to a place that is full of litter. People also don't feel safe if a certain area is full of waste. F, FTT, Fair Trade in Tourism. Also, you've learned about it a little bit in grade 10, but you are going to know or learn about this fair trade of tourism more in detail in grade 12. So fair trade in tourism. Just to explain it quickly before you can decide if it's positive or negative. Fair trade in tourism is when you as a tourism business or a tourism business doing the right thing. They are ethical, they are transparent, employees know what is expected of them, employees get some of the profits, they get fringe benefits, the owners do not discriminate the employees, owners do not discriminate the customers, marketing is fair and marketing is true. So it's the fair trade in tourism. Is it positive or is it negative? Okay, so fair trade in tourism is a positive impact. I'm going to discuss the three different impacts. I'm going to start with the environmental impact. Now, in grade 10, you have learned about the three different impacts. You have learned about the three P's: people, planet, profit. Now, you need to, when you write the three pillars of sustainability, also known as the triple bottom line approach, you need to write down people, social, planet, environment, and profits, economy. Rather be safe than sorry. Rather write all of that instead of just people, planet, profit, because that was actually terms that you have learned in grade 10. So in grade 12, we focus more on economy, environment, and social impact. Now we're going to start with the environmental impact. What is an environment? Now in grade 10, you have learned about the different environments. You have the physical environment, you have the cultural environment, you have the natural environment, and the man-made environment. Now, the environment that we are going to discuss here is the planet. It's the conditions and surroundings in which tourism and other businesses operate. A man-made environments usually built by man, such as the Taj Mahal, for example, and a natural environment is made naturally, such as Table Mountain. What is a good environmental practice? Now, a good environmental practice is when you protect the natural environment. You look after, you conserve the natural environment. According to the CAPS, these are the environmental impacts that you need to know. So you have to study them very well. Number 1 is the resource management, waste management. Number 2, number 3, litter control. Number 4, pollution control. Number 5, environmentally friendly buildings. And then the last one, promotion of indigenous flora and control of alien invasive plants in grounds and gardens. I am going to discuss each one of them. The first one is your resource management. Now, your resources, remember we have scarce resources. We are going to focus on energy as well as water. Now, energy can be divided into two groups. You have your petrol, diesel, etc., and then you have your coal, which you use for electricity. So it's energy, which is actually your fuel, petrol, diesel. You have electricity, coal, and then also your water. So we need to use these resources very sparingly. The resource management. Think of strategies to reduce the use of the following. Now, usually with sustainable and responsible tourism, you need to know what is the impact, whether it's positive or negative, and then if it's negative, how can you make it positive? So always ask yourself the question, if it's negative, how can I, or how can a tourism business, or how can a tourist change this negative impact into a positive impact? Because remember, a negative impact must be reduced and positive impacts must be increased. That is the main aim of sustainability. Okay, so A, how will you make sure that water is not wasted through leaking taps? This is a very easy question. You are going to do maintenance, ensure regular maintenance, and you are going to fix leaking taps. Transport, how can you reduce the carbon dioxide that is released into the air, or how can you reduce pollution? Okay, rather make use of public transport instead of driving with your own car, and also ensure that you do not drive very far when you go on holiday. when you have a tourism establishment, ensure that you use transport that is sustainable. And then C, the aircon in a hotel room. Switch off all appliances when you leave the hotel room. The next one is waste management and litter control. The management of the amount of waste, which is litter, generated by a tourism industry. Now, the tourism industry, it can be the tourism business and it can also be the tourist. Litter control is reducing or avoiding throwing rubbish on the ground, picking rubbish up and throwing it in a bin. So that is now reducing litter, and you are controlling the litter amount. And how can you ensure that you have litter control? Through what? There are three things, usually known as the 3R's, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle. So you reduce the amount of waste, you reuse whatever you can, and then you recycle glass, plastic, paper, and metal. The third one is your pollution control. Pollution, there's different types of pollution. You have water pollution, you have air pollution, you have noise pollution, you have visual pollution. So how can you ensure that pollution is reduced? Name 3 ways on how the tourism industry can reduce pollution. They can ask, in an exam question, they can ask, how can a tourism industry reduce pollution? Or they can ask, how can a tourist reduce their pollution? So name 3 ways, any 3 ways, how the tourism industry can reduce pollution. Let's focus on air pollution. So how can we reduce air pollution? What if a tourism business, because remember now the focus on tourism industry, so the focus is on a tourism business. Let's say, for example, a hotel. How can a hotel ensure that they reduce their pollution? They can install energy efficient light bulbs. They can ensure that when they use transport, they make use of sustainable transport, green transport. They can ensure that when they use transport, they have a certain time to pick up tourists, and that they have a certain schedule that they follow, so they don't drive up and down the whole time. And then the last one, solar panels. So instead of using electricity, make use of sun energy and install solar panels. There are a lot of ways of how you can reduce pollution. We've done it in grade 10, and now we're also doing it in grade 12. Okay, name the 3 ways how the tourist can reduce pollution. So now this is on the person going to the hotel. How can they ensure that they reduce their pollution? They can make use of public transport. So instead of driving with their own car, they make use of a bus, they make use of a train, they make use of minibuses, taxis, etc. So they use public transport. A tourist can support green hotels. Now, a green hotel is usually have environmental practices in place. They usually don't use electricity. They make use of sun panels. They make use of energy efficient lights. If they do use electricity, they don't use a lot of electricity. And then also make sure when you leave your hotel room that you switch off everything. You switch off your lights, you switch off your air conditioning, you switch off the kettle, you switch off your plugs where your phone is busy charging. So make sure that whatever is switched on. Switch off if you leave a room. The fourth one is your environmentally friendly building. Building and accommodation establishments such as an hotel, which are designed to have minimal negative impact both during building and once operational. So here we are focusing on specifically building a hotel. We use natural material. We don't use electricity. We don't take too much of the natural environment, so we do not destroy the natural environment. And there's also a good waste management. The promotion of indigenous flora and control of alien invasive plants in grounds and gardens. When a hotel owner or an accommodation establishment owner or attraction owner decides that he wants to build a garden or design a garden, it is better to use indigenous plants instead of alien invasive plants. Indigenous plants use less water, and it's also good for the environment because, remember, indigenous meaning that it's naturally from a specific area. So it usually comes from a specific area. And then alien invasive plants is plants from somewhere else that is not naturally from that specific area. So if you do plant with alien invasive plants, it can take over indigenous plants, and it can also ask a lot of water. So you will use a lot of water. The second impact is your economic impact, which is your profits. So remember, in an exam, when you do write the 3 pillars of sustainability, write people, planet, profit, and also with people, planet, profit, write social, environment, and economy. Now, what is the role of the business for the economic impact? Now, remember, tourism can have a positive and a negative impact on the economy, meaning that if they do get money in, they don't give it to the local community. Now, the economic impact has to do with your finances. It has to do with money. Always remember, economic profits, money. So there needs to be a budget where you manage your expenditure and you manage your income and you give back to the local communities by giving certain finances. So the tourism is part of the tertiary sector because it provides a service. They must ensure excellent customer service, products, and generate direct income for the business. Now, remember, with the multiply effect, when a tourist goes to a certain establishment, they spend money directly at that specific establishment, and then the employees and other stakeholders also profit from that income. They create jobs for local community. It can be direct or indirect. When we speak about direct, they create jobs at the hotel, they create jobs at the transport business, a rental company, they create jobs at the attraction or activity, attraction. And then indirect is when they create jobs in the local community. For example, Checkers, Truworths, Woolworths. So indirectly can also be where they provide income or jobs. They provide jobs at a souvenir shop. The tourist does not pay that specific establishment directly, but the people working at a tourism establishment, they use that salaries that they receive and they spend that money in the local community at other shops to buy food, to buy clothes, to pay for fuel, etc. So the money is multiplying. Support local businesses. So when you buy food, etc., buy from the local community. Do not import. Corporate social investment. Increase foreign exchange. So do marketing so that more tourists from other countries visit your attraction or your accommodation establishment. Improve human resources skills through training. So you provide training to the local community so that they can get jobs, so that they can improve their living standards and contribute to the gross domestic product. Remember that tourism is an export, and that contributes to the gross domestic product. The responsible attitude of tourism businesses towards the people and the environment it affects. So now, it has an economic impact, but this economic impact also is used and is given back to the people and the environment. So it is responsible attitude of a tourism business not to exploit the people or the environment. So they're not supposed to provide jobs and then does not even pay the minimum wage, or they don't care about the environment. So they must make sure, the tourism business must make sure that they look after the people they employ, and they must also look after the environment. Treat workers fairly, and this will result in a less turnover cost. Now, every time, if an employer is unhappy, what are they going to do? They are going to resign. They're not going to work there anymore. And now that tourism business needs to get new people in, and it costs money for training. It costs induction programs, cost training, and it takes time to teach that new employee. So if you treat your workers fairly, they will stay and they will be loyal to the business. Limit the use of scarce resources to reduce expenditure. Now, if you are going to use a lot of water and you're going to use a lot of electricity, what is going to happen? You are going to spend more on water and electricity, because water and electricity is not free. You have to pay your bills. So if you do reduce your use of resources, you are also going to reduce your expenditure. And you can rather use that money to give back to the community or give back to your workers. Spend money to ensure sound environmental management practices. You must look after the environment, so you must look after the area where you are situated. Improve infrastructure. You can use money to improve roads. You can use money to give back to schools, to improve schools, to hospitals, etc. And then reduce negative impacts and improve positive impacts. This is the responsible attitude of a tourism business. I'm going to leave you with 5 questions for this slide. Study the negative impact of tourism on the economy below, and name one strategy to reduce these negative impacts. So if there's a negative impact, how are you going to make this negative impact positive? Remember, I said every time when there's a negative impact, you need to think of a positive way of reducing this negative impact. Now we realize that South African tourists spend more money overseas, so they would rather travel to another country than to travel within South Africa. How are we going to reduce that? We are going to start and promote domestic tourism. We are going to promote domestic tourism through short lift. We do tourism. So we are trying to encourage South Africans to travel within South Africa and spend their money within South Africa, so that money does not leak out of the country and that money can multiply within our own country. Number 2, unemployment due to seasonal nature of tourism, meaning that remember that when people travel, most of the time they travel in December, or they travel in holidays, when there's school holidays. And during the time when they are not traveling, people don't have jobs, because now it's a seasonal job. It's a seasonal nature of tourism. How are we going to reduce that? We are going to encourage tourists to travel throughout the whole year. We can have festivals so that attracts people to travel in times when it's not high season. We have high season, low season, or peak and off-peak seasons. So we are encouraging tourists to travel in off-peak seasons, and we are encouraging tourists to travel and take shorter breaks or weekend breaks. Buy imported goods, so local businesses close down and money leaks out of the country. If you are helping companies that imports goods, meaning that other goods come from other countries and we are paying the other country for the goods, we are contributing to the leakage of the money out of the country. So we want to make sure that the local businesses benefit. So we have to encourage tourism businesses and tourists to buy locally. Local is lekker. Buy imported goods, so local businesses close down. So we don't want local businesses to close down. That's why we are supporting local businesses. And we don't want money to go out of the country. We want money. We want the money to multiply within our own country. Then the fourth one is price increase. Now, usually when foreign tourists come to South Africa, especially in areas that is well known, let's say, for example, Western Cape, that area tends to ask more for their products. So now there's price increase. But how can we help people within South Africa to travel within South Africa and reduce these prices? We can ask discounts. We can have competitions. We can have special packages. Stay for 3 nights, get 1 night free. So there is different ways of how you can minimize the prices or decrease the price. And then unemployment due to foreign employees. That's an easy one. Do not employ foreign employees. Try to first employ the local community. That's just the answers of the previous slide. There's other ways to manage the economic impacts. Now, the first one, we're going to focus on ownership, we're going to focus on employment, and then we're going to focus on procurement. Now, ownership is what does the owners of a business need to do to make sure that they manage the economic impact. They need to encourage and support and promote SMMEs. What does SMME stand for? Remember, you are not allowed to use abbreviations in the exam, so please don't write in the exam SMMEs. Write it out in full, which is small, medium, and macro enterprises. So they need to encourage and support small, medium, and macro enterprises. They must buy locally, and they must also offer shares to the local community as well as the employees that is working for them. Employment, you have to employ local community. Offer training so that they know what to do within the business and so that their living standards can improve, because now because they have a job, because they are trained, they've got the skills, they can now get money to improve their living standards. A business can also offer fringe benefits. Now, fringe benefits is something extra. Usually, an extra package, extra from your salary. So you usually get your salary, but you will also get something extra. For example, a medical aid, a cell phone account. You can have a travel allowance or car allowance. So there's certain things that a business can give the employees extra. That will also motivate them to work harder. Let's say if you are in the tourism industry, let's say you are working for a travel agent. If you have reached a certain amount of sales, you encourage them, you motivate them, and then you give them a reward, a paid holiday within South Africa. And then also the most important one is do not discriminate. Do not discriminate against race, gender. Do not discriminate against marital status, HIV status, etc. Don't pay the one person, if you are in the same working environment, you are doing the same work for the same amount of years, don't pay the one person more than the other person. Remember, if you're going to do that, that is discrimination. So you're not allowed to discriminate. Procurement of local goods and services. Now, procurement is when you buy goods at the right time at the best possible price. And try to buy from local businesses. Try to buy from local suppliers, like food and vegetables. Buy fresh, buy local. The next impact is your social impact. Now, social has to do with the people within the tourism industry, within the local community. Now, it's very important to look after the local community and look after the people. It's very important to look after your workers so that they stay positive. If they are not going to be positive, you are going to lose customers. So what is the social impact? It is to make sure that the local community benefit from the tourism income. So it is to make sure that people also benefit, they get money, whether it's through the donations, whether it's through training, job creation, make sure that the local community also benefit from the money that you get as a tourism business. Social impact, like I discussed previously, can have a positive and a negative effect. The positive effects on local communities is that there's cultural awareness. People are now starting to get aware of how important their culture is. They start to embrace their culture. They start to feel proud of their culture. But unfortunately, one of the negative effects on the local community is that there can be crime and violence, xenophobia, racial tension. But a positive effect on the local communities is that because people understand, or because people are now aware of different cultures, they now better understand each other. And this will reduce racial tension. Another positive effect is protect cultural heritage. Locals take pride in their own culture. I did mention that earlier. And money received are used to improve the community and the infrastructure. Roads need to be improved. Schools, hospitals need to be improved. So when a tourism business receives money, they can contribute to improve the infrastructure wherein the local community is staying. Other negative effects on the local community is locals adapt foreign culture. So now you see this foreign tourist coming into South Africa dressed very nicely, and they decide that this is the culture that they want to follow. They don't want to follow their own culture anymore. So they're not proud of their own culture. They see something better, something nicer, which is not always better and nicer, but that's what they want to adopt. And that is a problem. That is a negative effect on the local community. And then money received may not feed back into the local community. Most of these positive effects, if you know the positive effects and they do ask for the negative effects, you can answer it by just mentioning the opposite. Social impact, again, the multiply effect. Remember, with the multiply effect, a foreign tourist will come into South Africa, they will spend their foreign currency, and this will create jobs. This will improve the living standards of people because people get salaries, and the salaries can now be used within the local community. So this is also, the multiply effect is also a social impact because the living standards of people improve. Identify the following and indicate if this is positive or negative. Not going to waste too much time because I've already discussed the positive and negatives. But if you do identify A, this again, it is a positive impact because they are creating jobs and they are proud of their culture, they embrace their culture. B, tourist, your luxury trip my daily misery. So here, the local community is not happy because of mass tourism. There's too many tourists. So this is invading their privacy, and the tourists do not respect the local community. So that is a negative impact. This is just the answer. Okay, social impact. Another factor of social impact is corporate social investment. Now, I did discuss shortly what is corporate social investment. Now, corporate social investment is when you give your time and your money to give back to the local community. A business usually has a responsibility to look after the environment, and they do this through corporate social investment. Now, the investment is the money and the time that they give back to the community. This can be done through sponsorships, volunteer work, and remember, it can be financial or non-financial. It's always important to remember it is always important to remember that it is voluntarily meaning willingly, to contribute to a better society. So it is not compulsory of a tourism business to give back to the local community. They can do it willingly. But if the local community is happy and they approve of the tourism business, then the tourism business can make more money and the local community can also benefit. The main focus of CSI is not to increase profit. So it's not the focus. Profit is not the focus, but it is to support the community, the people. Some examples of financial corporate social investment, which is now money. Money can be used to educate or skills training. Money can be used to improve healthcare. Money can be used for youth empowerment, and money can be used to build sport grounds or recreational activities. And then non-financial, they do not give their money, but they give their time. They can do volunteer work within the area. They can donate sport equipment, so they're now not giving money to buy sport equipment, but they are giving sport equipment. They can provide feeding schemes and clothing distribution. So this is all non-financial. It is time that they give. It is products and equipment that they give. The aim of corporate social investment, it is to make sure that they provide responsible products and services. The business must ensure that they are involved in the community, that they do not pollute the area, or they reduce their carbon footprint. They ensure that they look after the environment, do business in an ethical way, in the right way, and responsibility for community, employees, and customers. So they must look after the people of the community. They must look after the workers, and they must also look after the tourists. How can a tourism business support corporate social investment initiatives? How will they ensure that a business contributes to corporate social investments, initiatives, investments? What can a business do? A business can provide sponsorships. A business can provide bursaries. A business can be part of and involved in the community. Create awareness and encouragement. Okay, and then financial or non-financial support given by tourism companies to health, sport, education, youth projects. They like to ask in the exam examples of how a company or how a business can contribute to social impact. And you have to think of ways of how you can invest in the society. And here is some examples. A tourism business can adopt a local school. They can provide bursaries so that some of the local community kids can learn and get training so that they can get better jobs, so that they can improve their living standards. Support local sport team or sportsmen or women, making them new clothes with the business logo on, and giving them equipment so that they can play with, for example, hockey sticks, etc. Create literacy and other educational programs for staff and community members. Support local health clinic and address health issues such as HIV, AIDS, TB, malaria through training. So a tourism business can give their time to educate the local community on these issues, promote a tourism culture by providing tourism talks to local schools. Now, tourism culture, as you have learned in grade 10, is where people become familiar with traveling. They grow up by traveling regularly. So they want to create a tourism culture so that more and more people understand the importance of tourism and so that more and more people travel. Invite learners studying tourism to visit the business, very good idea, so that they know what the tourism business is about. And remember, tourism is very broad. Tourism can be part of the transport, it can be part of hospitality, it can be activities, attractions. It is a very big industry. And funding construction of community centers. Here's just an example of Flight Center Foundation, social impact. An exam question of corporate social investment. What do you understand by corporate social investment? You always have to look at the mark allocation. If they don't say name one thing or name two things, it is very important that you write as many things as you can. Rather write a long sentence that is applicable to the work than write one-word answers, because you lose a lot of marks when you do write one-word answers. So what do you understand by corporate social investment? A concept whereby companies decide voluntarily, which is 1 mark, voluntarily, because it is not compulsory to contribute to a better society. So there's the other mark. So it is voluntarily to improve the society. Explain one way in which the CTI can benefit from including an environmental strategy as part of the CSI. They are showing the commitment to environmental consciousness, thereby getting the support of like-minded businesses. Okay, here's another example of exam paper. They will give you a scenario and then they will ask you questions. One of the strategies, remember I said that you need to think of a strategy for every negative impact. So one of the strategies of Enterprise Holdings is to reduce its carbon footprint. Now, carbon footprint is to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide that is released into the air. Short, it is to reduce air pollution. Explain the term reducing its carbon footprint. So it is reducing its carbon footprint means the company lessens the negative impact they have on the natural environment in which they do business. Another example, 8.3, as part of its corporate social investment, Enterprise Holdings invest in social upliftment and the environment. Explain Enterprise Holdings' unique donation policy, 8.3.1. Now, 88% of donations go to charities identified by employees. The employees are involved in the decision-making process and they let the employees decide who Enterprise Holdings must donate to. That answer you will get in the scenario. That is the end of my lesson for sustainable tourism. I am Mrs. Denise Mayberg, and thank you very much for your time. Just want to say we are all in this, and we think about you, and I speak on behalf of all the educators, grade 12s, and the rest of the learners. We miss you, and we can't wait to see you. Study hard, keep well. Thank you very much.